Now, I want to be correct. Right Honorable Dame Jacinda
It's
Ardern.
a lot. It's a lot.
It's a
Please,
lot.
Jacinda. Just Jacinda. Thank you.
I am referred to as Admiral Stewart. I will have you know. How are you doing? You put out your autobiography, where you talk a little bit about sort of how you grew up and the challenges that you faced as Prime Minister. Boy, you got hit with a lot of crises as you went there. You put out a children's book, and you did a documentary.
Yeah, that one came a little bit later. My husband, he's a broadcaster, and so when I found myself, 7 weeks out from an election, suddenly running to be Prime Minister, he just picked up a camera and started recording. We didn't have a set plan for it. Maybe it would just be a nice record for our daughter. But then after I left office, it was turned into a documentary. Yeah.
It's really a remarkable one because it's it's remarkable because it's very unfiltered in a way that you don't often see with politicians. You were not, as might be micromanaged here from certain personalities, in the edit room going, don't put that in. No, I don't want to snap.
And I think that's obvious.
It's raw.
It's obvious by the footage. You're like, why would she have allowed that clip at that angle?
More importantly, why would she have allowed her husband to film it?
Well, one thing I will say, so I've only seen the final version of it once, all the way through, and that was at Sundance Film Festival. So it was a very shared experience with the rest of the audience. And the bits that are in there, it's fair to say, don't include the number of times I told him to leave me alone and stop filming. But I
believe that you said leave me alone.
That was the polite version.
Yes, I was going to say.
But I'm so glad he persisted, because there's a story I hope that's told which isn't just about what's it like to lead through a domestic terror attack and through a pandemic and have a baby. And I hope that
within a very short period of time.
Short period of time, 90 minutes as it happens. And I hope that story is that they're still humans doing these jobs, and we'll make mistakes, and sometimes we'll get things right and sometimes we'll get things wrong. But we need more leaders who are willing to be humans while they're in the job.
Right. Very interesting. What would that look like? It was, your background, you have this childhood, your father works in law enforcement, you go into these small farming communities in New Zealand, or you go around, and the stories are really charming, but it's very clear it informs the humanity of your politics, and it's what gets you involved, and it's what gets your party, to really tie with the Conservative Party and then break the tie so that you end up being Prime Minister. But you don't necessarily get a chance to govern that way because you're hit immediately with these terrible crises.
We were hit with a lot, but at the same time, I'd like to think that we still made progress on the things that really mattered to us. We still did a lot on child poverty. We still put in really important climate change law. I remember during COVID, we were really worried about the number of women that were losing work, because particularly you saw insecure jobs which were dominated by women that were really, really struggling. And so we put a food and schools program in, knowing that part-time work would likely support women into the workforce. And so you tried to cover off one crisis with another long-term thing that you really wanted to do while in office. So we tried to do both, but there's no doubt it's hard when you're managing a pandemic, when you're managing, terror attacks, doing everything else. It is hard.
It was also interesting within it to see the highs. After Christchurch, your leadership, I think, was lauded, not just probably in New Zealand, but around the world. For the way that you handled it, the empathy that you displayed, going to the funeral wearing a scarf, 10 days later coming up with legislation that's going to ban these types of terrible weapons, which I don't know if you follow in this country, we've done the same. We are, I think the word is agile when it comes to these types of things. But to see really your approvals and you're riding high on that, and even early on in COVID, and then to see that turn was really jarring. And as an individual, having experienced that sense of the headiness of the popularity, and then suddenly faced with, you know, a woman right in your face going, you know, how does it feel to kill people during COVID?
I think when you're in politics, the idea that you ever allow this headiness or this idea that you're riding high, I never felt that, you know, because I've been around politics for so long. I always held on to the idea, what goes up must come down. You know, and ultimately, whatever political capital that you might have, you're going to need to spend it. And, you know, the best we can hope for is that politicians spend it on doing the right thing, even if it's something that's hard, even if it's something that you know might not be popular. Just doing the right thing.
I see where we've made a mistake. So, the right thing. Yeah, we haven't tried that one yet. Did you in 2019, you know, did you deal with Trump in the first administration? Had you had much?
I did.
And did he ever say, like, I think I'm going to invade your country? Did he ever, what was it like to deal with him? So many leaders we've seen find a way to try and flatter him personally while doing whatever it is they want to do otherwise.
I remember a lot of one of the interactions I talk a little bit about in the book, and it was a phone call after our domestic terror attack, where a white supremacist took the lives of 51 members of our Muslim community.
Right.
And
broadcasted on social media, and it was
and so
horrific.
we had it. This is one of the things that happens in leadership. You do contact one another, and you pass on your country's condolences, and you offer support and assistance. So we had a phone call like that. That was my second interaction. And at that time, you know, I thought, what can I ask? What can I ask of a country like the United States in that moment? And I remember the only thing I asked for was love and support for Muslim communities, because that was
from
what
us.
was needed. Yes. You don't ask, you don't get, I guess. But
even when you ask.
yeah. But I mean, at that time, you know, I still find it deeply sad that it, you know, warrants comment. The idea that, you know, mourning with a community who have lost so many of its members should be something that, you know, warrants conversation.
But it does now.
But that's sad.
And even, by the way, on the flip side, we've just had another terrible assassination, along with other mass shootings along that time. And social media, you see in these tribal communities, in these silos, the worst of humanity. It reflects and magnifies people's worst instincts. It's as though they think shitposting is legally mandatory, like that they have to jump in, that someone must know their worst inner thought in a moment, even if it's going to cause terrible pain to other communities. I imagine you had to deal with social media companies and all that because of what happened on Christchurch was public.
It was live
streamed.
streamed. It was live streamed. If you can imagine an attack as horrific as that,
right,
targeting Friday prayers to maximize the number of victims,
right,
and it was live streamed for 17 minutes.
And what was the attitude trying to contain that and get it pulled down? And was there a sense of them saying, yeah, we have a responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing actually that you can get agreement on. Everyone agrees that violent extremism and terrorism in the online environment is a bad thing. You can actually get some agreement. What's difficult is to get those who carry some responsibility to do something about it. And so...
Interesting. Yeah.
You know, that video was uploaded 1.5 million times onto Facebook. Once every second for the first 24 hours, it was uploaded onto YouTube. It was prolific. It was everywhere.
Right.
So some things have changed as a result. Some things have changed because of some of the work we did. But the pathways to radicalization have got worse. And
Absolutely.
we can't sit by and do nothing and expect it will improve. We have to start taking responsibility for each of our own areas to change what is that radicalization that is happening.
You guys did do that. I mean,
We tried.
Not necessarily to look, it's very difficult to design a society to out-strategize crazy. Like, that's going to exist. But you can do things maybe
I'm
to
pleased
mitigate
you're not putting
it.
that all on New Zealand. I mean, we can do a lot. We can do a lot, but...
I was hoping you'd pick up on that. It's your fault for burying the ring there. The ring is what's causing a lot of this.
I find it often...
People go...
It often comes back to that, I find.
By the way, I want to point out, so I went to say hello before the show, and it was lovely, and you have an enormous, in her dressing room, an enormous, I guess, posse, you'd call it.
There's two of them.
No. let's face facts. You roll like Snoop. But she had laid out a lovely display of New Zealand chocolates on a plate. What is the name of the chocolate?
I think you'll find
Oh,
it.
for God's sakes.
Whitaker's Hokey Pokey.
So I walked in, and she has a full display of Whitaker's Hokey Pokey
I couldn't
Crunch.
put the whole block, it would have melted in my trousers, but I did bring...
And it was,
Yeah.
I have to say, delicious, but I didn't know if I was supposed to say, like, wow, New Zealand, nice.
Could you just say that directly down?
Wow, New Zealand, great chocolate.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am curious, because I think we view, New Zealand as kind of a refuge, and when you view what's happening in the United States, does it seem surreal, shocking, expected? What's your vision on kind of how our politics is the direction it's moving in?
I don't think you're alone. I don't think you're alone.
Nice.
There's a globalization of political culture, and I think different nations are feeling it to different degrees. But there's a global survey done by Edelman. It's a trust barometer, and what they've seen across countries is an increase in the grievance people feel. They feel that political institutions are not only not making their lives better, they're making them harder. 61% of people feel that way.
This is worldwide.
This is worldwide. This is a global survey. And then, as a consequence, 4 out of 10 think hostile action is justified because of it.
Hostile action against
spreading disinformation,
Right.
or violent online engagement,
Right.
or even vandalizing public property. So in order to solve the second, because political violence is never okay and disinformation solves nothing, in order to solve that, we also have to think about what's causing people's grievance in the first place.
Right.
And that's where, as political leaders, we have to take responsibility. The easiest trick is to weaponize fear and blame. But that is what leaves
Well, that's the way it's, to quote Yoda, I believe that may lead to the dark side.
Well, in my view, does it leave our societies and our communities better or worse off? I think the answer is obvious. And
But do you wonder sometimes, is that even the goal anymore? Because I wonder, as I watch the political system, and I think, are they cynically using fear and weaponizing it? Is power really the principle that they're pursuing? Because you could make the case that it's divorced from outcome, that it's really just a tool to allow them to consolidate power.
Well, then I guess it depends what you think the definition of power is. What is power? In my mind, it's responsibility.
Yeah, that's not their definition. Let me go back to... I've got in my notes here, do the right thing. No. But that's exactly right. In your experience, we live in a complex ecosystem. Is it some combination of sort of the more online that we might live, the isolation people felt from COVID, the pandemic's, residual effects kind of knocking us a bit off of our center, and that this is a cycle that we find ourselves in that's going to be difficult to unwind.
I think so.
Right.
I think so. And I think
what are some of the things that you would look at to help unwind?
Well, in my mind, the part of the prescription is the type of leadership we have. In these times when people do have a sense of uncertainty, and fear comes out of a sense of uncertainty, when they have financial insecurity, and that is also a feature I think we see globally. When you have those things, leadership matters. And the US has been in times that I imagine would have felt as difficult as this before. The aftermath of a war, a pandemic in 1918, and then the Great Depression.
Sure, World War II.
And your leader was FDR, a great empathetic leader who didn't use fear and blame, but instead
He didn't turn the Japanese. For,
but,
I guess the point is like we do it. We have it to know. I
don't know where you go after that.
No,
like,
the point is, we have sometimes a nostalgia for history that doesn't allow us to judge ourselves properly, and it's why it's so difficult that. Right now, when we look and we say, like, gosh, we tell such a bad story about slavery, we should really lighten that up. Countries that can face their own dark histories have an opportunity to make those reforms.
And acknowledging your history, and of course, New Zealand has a lot to acknowledge. Acknowledging your history is not an unpatriotic act. It's a way of saying, I love my country and I know it can be better.
We're good.
But the point I was trying to make before you brutally derailed it was that empathetic and right in these times.
Yes. My
view, the answer is empathetic leadership. It takes courage to be empathetic in these times. Yes. It is a courageous act to be optimistic in these times, but we need more of it, not less.
Absolutely. Have you seen, is there a leader out there that you see on the world stage and you think, boy, that's the seed of something really interesting, really beautiful, really coming together?
Well, two things. I think the president of Mexico is governing through really difficult times, but doing so with dignity and integrity. I think that it's really interesting that on 2 recent election nights, prime ministers who won office used their election night victory speeches to talk about kindness. And that was Mark Carney in Canada and Anthony Albanese in Australia. Why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking about those examples where leaders are saying these are values that matter? So let's talk about those that are being a little more optimistic in these dark times rather than some others.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it's fantastic. You're going to be teaching that now, am I correct? You are teaching empathetic leadership.
Yes, I've built something called the Field Fellowship. It's supporting politicians still out there doing the hard graft, leading with compassion. So I have a program to support their work they're doing and try and spotlight some of their work.
It's fantastic. Is there any consideration you're still very, very young? To be eligible to be president of the United States, you have to be, from what I understand, 90. Is there any chance you re-enter a political arena at some point, or is that a part of your life that you'd like to move past that?
I'm very happy as just solely an ambassador for New Zealand's chocolate.
It's very good, the chocolate. The HBO documentary film Prime Minister. It debuts September 30th. Children's book Mom's Busy Work's available now. Dame Jacinda Ardern